always like my favorite thing about film, or one of it is 100 people, insert whatever number, are going to sit in a room and they're going to look at the screen and they're going to see the same thing, but they're not going to see the same thing. Because every single person that's there is bringing their life experiences, their emotional baggage, their preferences, their dislikes, their prejudices, and everything. And then they're looking at it and then they're like, if it's a mirror, they're like, I like or don't like what I see. And then they have that reaction. So you have a room full of strangers that are looking at the same thing and seeing something unique and different. And that's art to me. I mean, like for me, it's film, but that's also a song, a play, looking at a painting. That's just art. It's like, you kind of make it about you and feel what you feel because you're wired based off how many years you've had of life experience. And that's what makes it exciting is like, no matter what you do, it's going to be different and new,
Yeah.
So you stay here?
Yes.
Inside?
Yes.
Where it's safe?
Yes.
But how can you be really sure that it's safe?
What? What am I afraid of?
Yes.
Everything.
We'll throw ourselves in the deep end here.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm here with Mr. Jakob Bilinski, the director, writer of Compression. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for being a part of the festival. It's an amazing feat what you've accomplished with this movie. I think you need to be a little bit more bold. I want to see you be a little bit more unhinged. I'm totally kidding.
Okay. I appreciate that.
That's what I loved about it. I was like, he's not holding anything back here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, I really like that you were able to be graphic with it. There's like a sense of a meta sense about the whole film too in the beginning, right? Especially, in that reveal. So yeah, you really put a lot, of layers and thought, attention to detail and everything. So let's get started. Where did this movie spawn from in your psyche? Where did you come up with it?
Wow. Compression was born out of a lot of time and a fair amount of pain, if I'm being honest. My lead actress and producing partner, Emily, we're a couple, so partners in life and art.
Beautiful.
We had been dating for several years and we're looking for a project to work on together. She's an actor, I'm a director. We, kind of got together because of our love of art, or part of it, and had been looking for something to work on together. We knew we wanted to do a feature together that felt like the natural next step creatively that we wanted to build to. My writing and producing partner, Peter Matsoukas, who I'd worked with and been friends with for a very long time, came to me with this concept right around the pandemic. It was about 2019. Actually, it was about 2020. It was beginning of 2020. I had just finished work as a colorist on his last feature, No Place, and he had a concept he wanted to pitch me. And he said, okay, it's about this podcaster. She's agoraphobic. She's dealing with some trauma and she won't set foot out of her house. She takes drugs, turns into things are coming to get her. What's in the house? What's real? What's not? Psychedelic Mandy level horror movie. That was the original idea. we got to talking a little more about it. And I didn't realize at first when he was pitching it to me, I thought he was telling me a concept that he wanted to direct and wanted to know if I wanted to crew on. But he's like, no, I think this should be something we write together and you direct, because this feels like a you movie, which I thought was cool. So sat down and we started writing the script. And Emily and I, okay, so there's the film's very personal, both to myself and Emily. And I think probably to a degree, everyone that worked on it. We used kind of the film as a bit of a processing technique to kind of go through some hard things in life that we had gone through, kind of like you put yourself in the art. As I was writing the film, as Peter and I were writing the film throughout the pandemic, I realized that it felt like very like creepy and intense, and I liked all the horror elements, but it felt like it was missing a little bit of heart. I knew that I hadn't quite cracked what the trauma was that she had gone through. I'm also trying to not be too spoilery here, but yeah, it's difficult. But that fall in 2020, when we were in the middle of the writing process, Emily and I, our kitten, Iggy, suddenly got very sick. She was 1 year old, and she passed very quick, kind of caught us off guard. And
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, thank you. And, with any kind of loss, regardless of what it is, when it catches you off guard, that's a very personal, intense. I wasn't prepared for that moment. At least it was for us. So I found myself, we Emily and I obviously struggled with that, but I found myself in a pretty deep depressive episode for a while, and I couldn't write on the film. I couldn't look at it. There, that the things that bring you joy don't bring you joy anymore. It was that. So after a bit of a recentering and taking a minute, when I started, I kind of got up and came back to the table to write, and I realized that this was a movie about grief and loss. And then just what she went through, which I didn't know what it was, but everything that Hazel had was going to go through, I saw it clearly. I knew what it was. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, so this is the heart of the film. So it sort of became more of a film about like the wounds and emotional scars on your heart rather than the physical ones outside. So, it was sort of an very evolutionary process, I guess. It was ever evolving to kind of like figure out what the story was, and all those elements kind of came together through as we were adapting through life. So that's sort of, I guess, the rough idea of where the genesis of it came from. And then, once we knew what it was, we could hit the ground running.
So how does that, because that's a lot, right? You're already like throwing yourself into trauma, kind of opening up a wound and finding out what it means to you. So how did you cope with that during making the film? Did you find it all a very cathartic experience, and now you can kind of say, okay, we went through that? Or was it as you're going on, it's still kind of wrenching you, and you kind of use that to make it that next tier, that next level? I guess what I'm trying to say is, how was it emotionally then making the film for you?
Oof. Good question. Very difficult would be the short answer. It was a little bit of both, actually. I'm not going to pretend there wasn't a catharsis and some sort of sense of processing, or do it. The film very much felt like, and this is sort of become my thing as an artist, or at least where I find myself as a storyteller right now. It's I don't like being sad or mad or scared or angry or any of those intense feelings for no reason, and when you're in a state dealing with mental health issues and your brain is attacking you, you just know you feel a certain way. But sometimes, at least for me, it feels like I get really frustrated when it's it feels like there's no purpose for those feelings. Of course, you can always figure out what the root cause is, but I need to put them in a container. And it's this story allowed me to take a lot of my feelings, and Emily too, everything that we were going through, and sort of find a suitcase to neatly pack it in. It belonged in a container. It's it had a place on the shelf. Insert metaphor as you will. So that gave it a little bit of purpose. It felt like, okay, well, we're doing something with this. Otherwise, it's like we're crying on the floor for no reason, literally or figuratively. And so there was a little bit of a catharsis in that, but because it was such drawn from such like raw personal feelings and emotions, it was difficult to do. It was a labor of love, as every independent filmmaker says, but this was definitely a trial by fire for Emily and myself. Not to speak for her, but I do believe she would agree. It's I kind of did this backwards. I felt sad, and then we made this movie, and then I started going to therapy. So I think you're supposed to do that in the other order. And it's like, oh, you hear all that thing. It's like, oh, guys will literally do anything but go to therapy. I'm like, well, I made a movie, and now I go to therapy and talk about it, and hopefully we've done some growth here. But it was like necessary and like a mixture of everything that we needed and everything that we were afraid to go through. But it very much felt like when you're dealing with complicated feelings, and especially like a story where it feels that important, the only way out is through, at least to me, because those feelings were so complicated and difficult and hard to face. And because I knew this wasn't going to be an easy story to tell, if I can be blunt, this film scared the hell out of me. Like the idea of us making this, writing it, shooting it, Emily is a performer going through that, knowing that I'm asking my partner to go to these spaces. This was difficult to do, but we went into it eyes open because it felt like it was a thing that we had to do. There's a huge difference, and it clicked with this film. As a storyteller, you always get excited, like, oh, I'm going to make this. I want to tell the story, and I think I have a good way to tell it. But it's like, there's a difference between making something to make something, like making a project, if it's a project versus if it's the project. So like this one always clicked like, this is the one. And, you hear all those adages like, if it scares you, that's a good sign. Do the thing that you're afraid of. So that was sort of the barometer for us, was like, this scares us. We're unsure. That means that's the direction we go. So I tried to trust that instinct as best as I could as a director. But I won't. Yeah, it was equal parts great and difficult.
It's visceral. I would say it's like a visceral watch. Like there's some elements that out of nowhere come at you, like the painting. I thought that was so, unique. And no, it's funny because as you were talking, I was thinking like, you often hear like any kind of art, music, film, like described as escapism or something. But for you, it looked like, it feels, in speaking with you, it was the exact opposite. It was like holding a mirror up to your experiences. So I think that's really powerful, and it really bleeds through.
Thank you.
No, right away, just instantly grabs you, pulls you in.
Oh, that thank you. That's all I could hope for from anyone that would sit down and watch it. So that means a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, no, of course. Those touches, how did that come to you? Like the painting, the man in the painting and everything. I know exactly, with not trying to give away too much, but sure. Like, did you design it? I'm interested in the technical aspect of things too, because I think people learn from that, something that they could replicate and learn from. So how did that come to you, or how did you achieve it? The effect,
the painting man specifically?
Yeah.
Okay. That, again, thank you. Great question. When we were writing the film, there was always this idea of a centerpiece, like a key piece of art, a painting of a figure that, she was drawn to in her space. Never wanted to explain where she bought it, where it came from. Just, she has this piece of art that for some reason it's like she's drawn to and she's a little uncomfortable with. And it's almost like you hang it there in plain sight. I wanted to have it as a representation of like that there's a shadow of her past that's haunting her. It's like the elephant in the room we addressed, the piece of art you probably shouldn't have taken down. So like that was the starting point. When we so in the script it was like like a ghoulish kind of like shadowy, creepy figure. I forget actually how I described it in the script, but there was like a description of like this painting that we didn't have an image of. And then we reached out to, it's actually Emily's cousin, her cousin Adam Wagner. We sent him the script and talked about it and the idea and of what we wanted. and he designed the Painting Man painting. He submitted it, and we talked about, like, I think we had a conversation about like colors and idea and tone. And I was like, I'm kind of going for this kind of vibe, have fun, because I want you to play. And he designed that, sent it in. We knew we needed multiple versions because there's actually some subtleties, like the painting is like looking like direct to the side, and then there's the different iterations. So he basically gave all the different versions of the painting that we would frame and hang up. And what we realized was he had never seen Kevin Roach, the actor that played Elijah, Hazel's romantic interest in the film. And when he turned the painting in, it kind of had that idea of a trace of Elijah, which it looked a little bit like Kevin. And that was, that was a happy accident. But then we really leaned into that because the idea was always that this would be, I always knew that the idea of the Painting Man and Elijah were going to be intertwined. That's about all I want to say. But
okay,
But I always knew that whichever actor would be cast as Elijah, which was going to be Kevin, that he would play the Painting Man too. He was actually kind of surprised. I was like, no, you're playing this character too. That's like a dual role, because I don't know that was clear in the script, but that was always intended up here. As for shooting it, what we did was my amazing makeup effects artist Megan Levitt. She took Kevin and she saw the painting and seen scenes, and we talked about how it was going to work out when you saw the manifestation of this image. She had wrapped Kevin in clothes and like sheets and kind of like shrouded him a little bit, and then painted him to mimic the painting, like the colors and everything. And then to get that glowing effect, that's just a lot of RGB lights that are phasing through different colors. We did a lot of experiments about how certain lights of colors will make certain colors of on a painting or portrait pop. So all the bits of the painting glowing on the wall and the Painting Man glowing when he's in the room, that's mostly practical. That's actually like all the lights, like, we're just kind of moving the lights over there, and it's making like the reds and the blues kind of phase in and out depending on whatever opposite or current color is on there. And it's and then through the color grade, there's a lot of digital power windows on there that are boosting and enhancing luminance and saturation and just certain levels to make them pop. But all the glowing and everything is really just the lights that we were moving around, and then the color grade sort of amplifies the effect. So I'll be honest, it looks much more complicated than it actually was to do. I'm not trying to take all the mystery away from it, but it wasn't a very complicated process, but it did take a lot of time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it looks great. That's why I'm asking about it. I'm very surprised to learn that it's mostly practical. It does look like, you had a special effects budget that must have been pretty hefty, it looks really great.
That was my friends. That was me and my friends. They were just lighting that, and then that was just me tweaking levels in the computer. So that was about as done in your garage grassroots as it could be for that. So thank you so much. I'm so glad that tracked that way.
Yeah, no, definitely. No. As we were talking a little bit before the interview, you wore many hats on this project. Was that a choice that you were like off the bat, I have to do it this way? Is that something that was born on the spot? And when doing that, what do you think is like the part of you that keeps you going? Because like this is like, it's all consuming, right? Is what it feels like. So yeah, wherever you want to jump in with that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, wearing all the hats was half preference and half necessity. I like, okay, everything I do is sort of reverse engineered around the fact that I want to direct. Like, if I had to drop everything else, it's like, everybody, it's like, I just want to direct. I tend to like to direct things that I've written because I like to be involved in the story from the, ground floor. That's just how I am as a storyteller. I'm a kind of director that I know the way that I shoot. It's a longer, like I probably would make most editors' lives a little bit hell. So I was like, okay, I need to cut this because part of my directing is, I know how it's going to get put together, and it's easier if I cut it than if I explain it. So, and I knew the way that we wanted to shoot this one, not to double up on that. I with it being such a personal passion project, and I'm not going to pretend like our budget wasn't a little low on this one, but I knew that I likewise probably would drive a director of photography a little nuts. We had some very long shooting days, and I knew I want. Sorry, I don't want to eat up all the time. There's like several scenes I was just very like particular about how I wanted to shoot them, and I knew it was going to be like a lot of angles and a lot of takes. And I'm like, I know it'll make sense in the edit, but it's just going to require time. And I thought I'm going to put myself through that. I don't want to frustrate someone else, but I can frustrate myself. So a little bit of it was me just sort of streamlining it, like directing, shooting, and editing kind of streamlined a lot of conversations for time that I knew I could manage. I don't want to do that on every project. It just made sense for this one. I want to be clear about that. But it's, yeah, like when Peter and I were having and Peter, Emily, and I, because we were the three main producers, having a discussion breakdown about the budget. One thing we realized was, I said, oh, well, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll shoot it. I'll edit it. Okay, yeah, I can do the color grading. I can do a lot of the digital effects. If we need to outsource some, we can. Because we had other people in post. I just was handling a lot of the visuals. And Peter pointed out, he's like, do you realize how much money we're saving by you just wearing all these hats? And I go, well, that wasn't a plan, but that is a benefit. Sure. We didn't do it to cut costs. It's just sort of like that allowed us to open things up for more of what we could spend on screen. So it was a little bit of a, if this is going to be that personal of a project, then I'm going to be that obsessive and picky about it. I'd rather make my life a little more difficult than someone else's artistically. So yeah, that was a little bit that I kind of joked when we jumped on, like, it's like you have to be a little bit masochistic, I think, to be an artist. And that was just sort of like, okay, well, I'm gonna take all those hits, and those will be like, that's my responsibility. So yeah, but I don't want to pretend like I had an amazing camera team and crew with me constantly. It wasn't like, hi, I was surrounded by, every director says this, but I literally had the best cast and crew ever on this thing. So
yeah. No, Emily, kudos, like her performance is just stellar. Like, yeah, you just totally can't keep your eyes off of her, and just the intense emotion she's bringing to it. No, super, super well done there. Cause yeah, I mean, cause it like they always say that, a film is the director's forum versus theater is the actor. But, this is here like one instance where if she was off, you could have brought, all the special effects you wanted, and it would have been here like, oh, well, I don't feel anything for this character. So, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Yeah, so this is, I think, one project that, like, no, you see, like, you need a good marriage of both, no, definitely.
Yeah, no, well, Emily has so she has a wealth of experience. Like, she comes from theater. So, like, I'm a filmmaker who has, like, I've directed 5 plays. I'm a filmmaker who started to dabble into theater, and she transitioned from theater to film. So we sort of like a little bit.
Met in the middle, yeah.
I'd like to. I wanted us to try to find like this little, like this middle ground or this marriage, because I'll be honest, Emily is one of the first performers I've had the opportunity to work with that has just blown me away and like is so good. And I'm saying this as her director, not her partner. Little hard to separate the bias, but it is. Yeah, no, I definitely objectively just think that she's a brilliant talent. But there's a gift that one of the best gifts you can get as a director is to have, and this should be the norm, but to have an actor that is so focused, that gives you so many options and is so tuned into their character and so present that you're not required to cut away to save the performance. This isn't but I'd like to think that I've edited actors to, I'm used to like, I've worked with people that, maybe don't have a lot of acting experience, when you're doing indie film. Hi, you come in, you do the scene. I don't know. It's okay. I know how to edit you and I need these parts. And, you sort of can like direct and edit a performance. But when you have a really talented performer and you can just be like, let this sit in a oneer and just focus on the character, slow pushing and no cuts. That's how you want to tell the story. You don't want to have to cut it a certain way. And this is the first film I can say that I haven't had to do that. And that was great. When we said that, like I said, Emily and I have been looking for a project to work on together for a while. I'm very lucky to say that everyone that is in this film are close friends and collaborators of varying degrees. Some are like people that are closest to me. All the bands and music in the film are local artists that are they're all friends. So it's like, it feels like this little like special thing that we all went into. But like, I knew that I was like, okay, Emily needs to be seen. She is a performer that needs a platform. And why has she not been a lead in a feature? Please more. Let's do that. And I knew that if I could just have the right project, that there'd be an opportunity to showcase the great talent that all these people I'm lucky enough to call friends, but grateful to call peers, have. And I kind of wanted it to be a showcase. Yes, hopefully, hi, look what I can do. But really, I wanted to just showcase like all these artists that I'm lucky enough to be like in the middle of. And that's all. Like Michelle, who plays Sienna, Hazel's sister in the movie, is Emily's best friend. So it's like it's all like we are kind of like this little like, and Kevin, who's Elijah, that's like one of me and Emily's oldest friends. So like, he's been in all of my films. So it did feel like this little like kind of close knit family of we know each other and we've worked together, with a whole lot of new people that are now part of it. So it was just, that was always the idea. I believe in the talent of my cast and crew, and I want to show what they can do. So I better try to make something that showcases that. That was always the hope. Emily deserves a hell of a platform because everything you said, yes, and then some. She's amazing. I can't say enough good things about her.
Yeah, no, same. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, yeah, if you don't have an emotional draw, then like you kind of were saying earlier, you need to find the heart in the middle of, the chaos or the pain or a beautiful set too. Sometimes, yeah, it can't just be all aesthetics is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Because I think there's a great deal of courage involved in filmmaking, right? So what did you draw from like previous projects to say like, okay, I'm ready to do this in this scope on this level? Like what did you draw from? Are there previous projects that you're like calling back to like, oh, I learned this here, or I saw that this worked well here, there. Anything like that to give us a little bit more background on you and kind of your journey as a filmmaker. Yeah.
Wow. At first I was like, oh, thinking of all the films I was influenced by, and then you were like, oh, your work, and I'm like, oh.
You can give us both. No. You can give us both.
I get excited talking about films that I love, and I'm like, oh yeah, the stuff that.
No. Please do. Both.
Let me see if I can wrap it all together. Sure. So, Compression is the third feature of mine to be released. I took a bit of a hiatus. I made a couple features back in the early aughts and tens. My last one that came out was Three Tears on Bloodstained Flesh back in 2014, and it was a 70s giallo kind of homage throwback. I was real into like in my 20s making like slashers, I liked that whole Friday the 13th thing. Still love that. It's just as a storyteller, I've kind of flipped more to like that Mike Flanagan, Ari Aster kind of corner of this is the horror that's speaking to me now. So, but I wanted to sort of like, this is weird to talk about because like I've had some people who have watched Compression that I've worked with or that knew my previous work that have said like, oh, this kind of feels similar but different. It feels like you, but it feels like something fresh. And I appreciate that. I just don't get the first half because when I look at it, I'm like, this feels like nothing I've ever done before. Like I kind of wanted Compression to be a reset. It'd been 10 years since the last feature. I'd been doing, I spent that time doing a lot of, freelance production work. I'd worked on a few seasons of a couple TV shows. I'd done a lot of music videos and commercials and, short films. And I was a director of photography on a few features and shorts over the years. And I wanted to get back to doing another feature. And I wanted to just sort of feel like a fresh reset. Like, oh, well, I'm not really following anything up. And this is very different from the other work that I had made. So I kind of wanted to just try a Jake 2.0 as a filmmaker. But I will admit, I guess you have your styles and your things that you naturally are drawn to as an artist. Because I look back at my first two features, Shade of Grey and Three Terrors on Bloodstained Flesh, and I think I kind of feel like I looted maybe some good thematically from those, but this feels so different. Like I look at the two and I'm like, that's not the same writer, that's not the same director. So it's hard for me to compare and contrast. But I spent a lot of time learning how to shoot. I'd say over the past since Three Tears 10 years ago, I spent a lot of time kind of revamping myself as a cinematographer because I could not have shot compression without all those projects that I did. So like all the work on the TV shows and the freelance work and the commercials I did, kind of felt like a multi-year boot camp for me to be able to say, oh, that's honestly what enabled me to feel like I'm confident enough to shoot compression. A couple of years ago, I mean, like if you go back to like years before we made it and you show me the script that say someone else had written it, not us, and I just read it, I'd be like, I can't shoot that. But all that work did prepare me for it, because a lot of it was, oh, we did this on this commercial, or this is like that 1-2 shot that we did, on this. So like stuff that would only make sense to me, but I was able to draw from that experience. So that probably was the biggest thing I pulled on, was just, I feel like I'd been preparing for the past several years on how to shoot this. Over the pandemic, Emily and I would be picking up some new lenses, and we would go out and I would put them on Instagram, these things I would call anamorphic tests, just with whatever lens, like, hey, let's test out the 50 millimeter and see how it looks. Let's test out the 75. And it would snow and we'd go do a walk in the snow, and I just film her throwing snowballs in slow motion at the camera, and, just like pretty scenic shots. And or we'd go to Garden of the Gods and climb the mountains, and I would just get or the rocks and just get shots of her on top of the rocks with the landscapes. A lot of that footage actually made its way into the flashbacks of when Hazel used to travel. Oh. So some of those 2020, 2021 camera tests that we were doing, which were cinematography tests for compression because we were in pre-production at that point, that I think that's probably the best way that I could answer that, because that was critical for me to technically be able to try to wear any of those hats. But as far as films I was influenced by, Suspiria, Argento's, that was a huge one. The color lighting, I think that's pretty obvious. I was very, very much influenced by Midsommar. That one has been sticking with me since I saw it. Like Ari Aster, and the way that he captures grief and just like family issues and depression just hits like really, really hard with me. Mike Flanagan's another one. Honestly, Emily and I are obsessed with his movie Hush, and cards on the table when we were writing this were like, can this be like our love letter to that? Because we love how that was just Mike Flanagan and Katie Siegel. Okay, first off, not to be that, but like, we adore them. They're like our couple goals artistically and life-wise. We're just like, hey, I'm gonna do that. So to see them doing what they did with Hush, like, they locked down, wrote the script together, made this little, and it hit the vibe of everything we wanted to make. At one point, I'll admit, Hazel was like off in a cabin in the woods, and I was like, this is too derivative. No, so like we wanted to lovingly, not copy, but we wanted it to be like our version of Hush, is sort of like a love letter to what those artists we love did. So that's a fun. But no, like honestly, there's a lot of Nolan influence, like a little bit Memento and Inception, the way the flashbacks were, that was very influential to me. I could sit here and just name 20 of them, but yeah, no, like I pulled from a lot of the stuff that I loved. Like I wasn't afraid. I guess we went into this saying that we're not afraid to wear our influences on our sleeves. Oh, this is an homage to that. Oh, this is from that. This is, we're making this story that's like trying to put this very personal tale into a box. So it's like, why would you not want to just like shower it with like love and homages to things that we appreciate? So.
Yeah, no, I definitely do see the Nolan of kind of putting like the breadcrumbs in the beginning that, turn into something you weren't expecting later. So yeah, that kind of like intelligence behind it, like a heartbeat. Yeah, that marches to the drum of intelligence. And yeah, no, it's, again, I can't say enough good things. It's really, really fetching. The title, how did that come to you? I think it's an interesting title as well.
Oh, thank you. That was okay. Titles are hard for me. Like I really struggle with like, what's this going to be called? And I obsess over character names too. Like I'm too obsessed artistically with labels. In life, not so much, but in my art, I'm like, it's got to have it's got to be called the right thing. So, originally the film, when we were writing it, the first draft, it was just called Pod, like for podcast. But I never really, like, I always wanted something a little more dynamic, a little more sinister, and I wasn't quite sure. And Pod kind of felt like it could be sci-fi-y to me.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what your assumptions are when you read a title and see the key art. But compression hit because actually I was writing the scene where she was kicking out her podcast, and it's like, you know, she sets the audio to compress, and that kind of, like, I was thinking about that, and that was sticking with me, and I was like, okay, you know, like when a panic attack starts to kind of set in, and it feels like the walls are closing in around you, and you start to feel like you're in this claustrophobic small space, and it feels like the world is compressing around you, and I'm like, oh. And also, like, this idea of pressure and, like, you know, building pressure from the compression, also it being an audio term, it just sort of like, and then I started going down a rabbit hole of like, oh, it could mean this, it could mean this. And it felt like it was like this multi-layered moniker that just sort of like fit the movie completely. Like, so, and then the tagline for the movie ended up becoming Everything's Loud, which is pulled from the closing song, like the lyrics to the closing song, Roach Hockey by Swamp Eyes. And listen to it on Spotify. Love that song. But so yeah, it became a little bit of more like, you know, everything's loud, everything's overwhelming, and this metaphor of like, you know, I'm a person who can be very easily overstimulated. As a person that talks too much and can be the loudest person in the room, sometimes, like, I also can be very overstimulated when there's too much noise, too much talking, it's too much stimuli to take in. So that kind of felt like not just the walls like closing and compressing in around you, but just like this idea of like, I need to compress that audio and kind of, you know, like get rid of it worked on so many levels for me that when I heard it, I stopped questioning, and my gut goes, that's the title. And then when I was able to justify it, I was like, stop thinking about it. It's compression. And so it just sort of fit.
Got it and ran with it. Yeah, no, it's really good. And, you know, in speaking with you and thinking more about the movie, and I don't know if this is intentional or just, you know, a nice side effect. Like, I think you could grab like so many various audiences, like the true crime people, the horror people, the thriller people, the drama people, you know. So I don't know, was that kind of deliberate on some level, or like
yeah, accident? Actually, thank you so much. That has been okay. The journey of this film on its festival run has been very surreal, because we've gotten a lot of, that's not a horror movie, it's not scary, and my reaction to that is always good. I'm really glad to hear that, because as a person that struggles with, you know, broken brain mental health stuff and why we go to therapy, this movie, while it's personal, is terrifying to me. Like this idea of the horrors in your mind being worse than anything that is in the world.
Right.
Or it can feel that way. I'm not, whether or not it's true, it's like those feelings feel that way. So, yeah, I just, what is my point I am trying to make to you with this?
If it was deliberate, or like what you've been getting from the festival run, the feedback.
Yeah, it's weird to me when people say that it's not horror, because I think like, to me it is horror, but like I never wanted to make, if I'm being honest, I'm not trying to cop out here. The intent was not to make just a straight horror movie.
Right.
I don't mean that as a good or bad, ugly thing, any kind of way. It's, yes, it's a horror film, and, you know, yes, it's a drama, and, you know, like I didn't want it to fit easily in one container or box. Like, you know, I kind of saw it as or like, I like to think we all saw it as like a multi-faceted, you know, multi-genre picture. Yes, it's a horror film. It is essentially just a character study. You know, it's not just a sad drama about loss, but like when we went to when we went to our first festivals, we premiered at Horror Hound, and was kind of shocked to get in that, but we were like, oh, and then we got like 11 nominations, and we ended up like sweeping and winning seven of their biggest awards, and it was nuts, because we were like received so well in the horror community. And then we had some other festivals that were like, this isn't horror, and, you know, we were rejected. So it's like, well, we weren't trying to aim just in the horror festivals, it's just it could play there too. So depending on the audiences, we've had some horror that is like super embraced it, but I'll admit, if you're going to watch Compression and you're expecting like a Terrifier 3, you're probably going to be disappointed, because this is not that. Neither.
Right.
But it's like they're just, it's like they're very different. They're different items on the menu from a restaurant that is cinema. And I didn't want it to just like fit easily into a box. Like I said, we're putting all these personal things into a suitcase, but like they didn't all go into the same suitcase. It's like some of this is about fear, some of this is about sadness, some of this is about hope. Like this is the happiest ending I've ever had to a movie. For as miserable as the movie is, and honestly, like it's weird to say as the director, but like I cry when I watch it. Like this movie hurts me to watch, but like I'm proud of it. And like, when I watched it in a room full of people in a theater and I hear other people sniffing and crying, and then we do a Q&A, and this actually happened. Someone said, so after we premiered at Horror Hound, and had the amazing reception that we did, like, that was our world premiere. We went in with 11 nominations, walked out with 7 wins, including Best Feature, Judge's Choice, Best Director, Best Actress, for Best Lead Performer for Emily, Best Supporting Performer for Kevin, and we won way too much. It was amazing. And it was just like, how is this happening? On it, like legit, like coolest festival experience I'd had in like forever at that point. And and then seeing like at some of the other festivals, how the horror community like really responded to and opened up to it. But we would be sitting in a Q&A afterwards, and then someone would literally say, "Screw you, this is Horror Hound. I'm not supposed to be crying. Why did you make me cry?" So it's like people were getting upset, like, but I wasn't prepared to feel things. And so like it opened up in some really amazing discussions with the audience. Like, we got to kind of like, I had a lot of people coming up and just starting to share their personal stories that they were comfortable enough to share with me, with like how the film spoke to them, and how they saw a lot of themselves in Emily's character and were talking to her, and just how like they saw a piece of their own trauma in it, or just the way that they related to it and weren't prepared. Were like, I had no idea where it was going, and then all this stuff happened. And it's like, that was sort of the point and the hope. But yeah, like we started to realize that like, because I approached it like, this is I hate when people say like a genre picture, but it's like, it's a horror film. That we knew that we wanted to make a horror film, but not just like a straight slasher. It's not just like a straight ghost story. It was like this. I'm not going to pretend it's like fresh and original and a brand new thing, but it felt like it fit into the definitions that we were putting into it. Not, it's like this. And right. Like we went to, one of the best experiences we had was at this Mental Filmness. The festival's called Mental Filmness in Chicago. And we went up and got to have this talk back about mental health. And people were like really sharing some personal tales. And that was like extremely gratifying, just to think that like, we were making this film about what we were feeling, and that people would resonate with people, and they would identify, and we could start a dialogue. Like, of course, it's always fun to talk about where the movie came from, and like how you shot a scene, and like what it was like and how fun it was, but wasn't really prepared for some of those like bigger real life talks that people were having, which is awesome, because that's what we put into the film. So I love that that was connecting with people. Did I answer your question, or did I just totally
no, you did. Like I was saying, because it's not just a horror film. I think you'll attract like different audiences, like the true crime. Like in the beginning, you think it's all that, and you're really invested of like, ooh, what happened here, and I want to solve this, and just that now it just adds like such a layer. Like if you think about it, of society wise, how we can all relate by being enveloped in these stories, and just these audio stories, and somehow it just strikes instantly home, and you feel like you're around, well, at least for me, you feel like you're around a bonfire, hearing,
Yes, that was the hope. Yeah.
So so you have like, you could grab that kind of an audience from there, the true crime audience, the horror audience, the thriller, ooh, what's happening next, the suspense, kind of like what you were speaking to before, like kind of, some of the worst monsters are the ones that are in our head,
like for me, and again, not trying to get too spoilery, but like, like when I break it down, exactly that. Like Hazel's kind of the villain in the, well, not her, her brain, you know, like she's a victim, obviously, with everything that's happened to her, but like she, in a weird way, like you can kind of like emotionally become your own roadblock. And like that was part of the film, was this idea of healing is sort of putting things to bed. Sometimes it's getting out of your own way. And, yeah, that was always the idea, is like there was never really like yeah, there was there's a figure that I intentionally did not give a name. That's why he's only called the killer in the movie. He had no dialogue, because with, yeah, and when you see, it's her story, not anyone else's. So it's and that was always the point, was it was always supposed to be not just her perspective, from her perspective, but it's like it is about her, and it is absolutely her tale. And I just yeah, like I don't know.
Because you brought up a good point there about like cinema in general, how like everybody's kind of been drawn to the anti-hero trope. So
Yes.
you've kind of diverted that in this film by not giving him a platform and a why he kills. You know, like you haven't.
Mm-hmm. That was intentional, because I was like, the second that he has a name and like a voice in her story, that takes it a little bit away. So I was like, he's relegated to like the thing and the cause, and that was the inciting incident, as we see when you all kind of see how it goes and puts it together. I hope that makes sense. But
Yes.
but yeah, in a weird way, how that can exist is like this. Hi, kiddo. She got her paw on me. Like that can exist as like this seed that can grow into something very cancerous. And like, you know, this idea of like, I always kind of saw it like, you know, like this idea of like something's haunting her, she's haunting herself. You know, that's sort of like, yeah, I keep saying no spoilers, but that's sort of like what a little bit of, that's an element of the Painting Man. And yeah, just this idea of like you can sort of become your own worst enemy, because it's like she's reclused and like withdrawn so much that it's like, you know, she starts to just like only know herself as a victim. And like, you know, so it essentially is like, you know, the hero's journey, this catharsis, this tale of like, you know, like rising up and like taking a breath and being born again. And that's why like the whole movie is not, this is important to me. When I was writing it, I was like, this is, if we're coming at this from mental health, genuinely, this is from that perspective, this is not a movie about someone that is okay, that they become okay. This is about the decision to make the first steps towards being okay again. It is about, I want to reach out and ask for help. I want to take that first step outside, literally and metaphorically. It is about, the first step is saying, I'm not okay, and I want to reach out for help. That's the whole point. Like when you, in the movie, Hazel's not okay. And there's that line, like one of my favorite lines is where she goes, I'm not okay, but I'm going to be. And it's yeah, I'm talking too much about the movie at this point. But
No, it's
good. Is that like, it's supposed to be just that like she can take a breath and like realize that she can take in breath and that she's alive and she can breathe again. It's like, check your pulse. No, I'm still here. So that was always supposed to be like that idea of like a rebirth. And also there is a little bit like a personal element, and the risk of talking about all the stuff I would talk about in the commentary. It was important to me that the movie, if you notice, it's kind of bookended with her starting and stopping work a little bit. You know, it's this idea of like, you know, I talked earlier about how it had been 10 years since I'd done a feature. And I was like, oh, well, this is a little bit about the decision as a creator. It's about art to decide to create again. So, you know, I don't know. Hazel is kind of Emily and I, like, it's a conglomerate character a little bit, and then fictionalized. So
no, and truly of overcoming the past. You know, it reminds me of Lot's wife in the Bible, right? If you turn around and look, you'll turn into a pillar of salt, right? Yeah. No, it's truly a fascinating film, and again, just a lot of levels. You know, so again, I think you'll attract people that go to a movie and watch a movie for different reasons. So, you know, good on you and the team that you were able to accomplish that. And then just, I guess my last question would be, what's next?
That is a good question. So Emily and I, we also do a lot of theater. So like, you know, like she actually stage managed, with me. I directed Rope, for our local community theater back in, November. So, you know, we're eyeing some more, theater productions locally where we are. But I'm busy writing the next 2 films right now. So it's still very early to talk about, but I sort of have realized after compression that I think I have this idea for a thematic trilogy. I'm not trying to live in the pits here, but like I think compression might be for me starting a grief trilogy. Not a connected story. It's not going to be the same characters, but sort of if you want to think of a way like Ingmar Bergman's one of my favorite filmmakers, and he did this Silence of God trilogy, which was Through a Glass Darkly, Winter's Light, and The Silence, and it's just a thematic trilogy. Comedically, a lot of people know like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End, you know, where it's like the same actors but they're playing different things. I guess I'm kind of approaching it a little bit like Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor, where it's like they're similar types of stories. They're about similar themes, you know, but totally different characters, but it's like the same cast. So like a lot of the people from Compression, I hope to bring back in different roles and positions. But yeah, we're planning, we're writing the next 2. It's very early right now, but yeah, I think we're starting a thing with it. So
brilliant. That sounds very exciting. But you're Kevin. Right?
Kevin Roach?
Yeah. You know who he reminds me of? I don't know if he gets this or if maybe it's just me. Nick Stahl. I don't know. There's some.
Oh, I can see that. It's the jawline. I can see that. Yeah.
It made me do a double take. I'm like, because I love Carnival.
Yeah, definitely.
I was so sad that was taken off or how it ended. But I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that's so cool.
Is he in this? So yeah.
Oh no, I will have to pass that on to him. I don't know if he's gotten that, and I have not realized that, but you were 100% spot on. I love that.
Sword fight, king of the hill. Fireflies and jars to buy, wonder bars and dungaree. Clumsy fingers chase the tadpoles in the muddy pond. Soulmate, wander the nipping shore. Season, quicken their pace. Touch upon the shoulder, ripple